Hey guys, welcome back to Odo Art Studio, and today we're going to be talking about three-point perspective. I'm going to access Google here, and we're going to look for a photo reference in order to get us started on a framework here. So I'm looking up buildings in Lebanon, PA, and we have a good one right here that we can use. It's a Sandler building in Lebanon. If you're not familiar with it, it's right in the downtown area, very popular building. So what is three-point perspective? If you're not sure what it is, I'm going to show you a brief description. So with three-point perspective, we're able to draw buildings and other objects in space with depth, making them look realistic on the page or a canvas, digital screen, whatever medium that you're using. There's so many artists who use this type of perspective drawing and create great effects with it. So if you notice here, we have one point to the left, one to the right, and one to the bottom, which gives us 3 points, establishing a three-point perspective grid. So here I'm going to be grabbing an image from Google, the Sandler building, and I'm going to upload it to the Clip Studio program. And I'll be leaving a description below on this video to Clip Studio Paint, and it's a great software. I've been using it for a very long time, and it has great tools to allow you to understand how to use perspective. I think it's the best tool out there right now, in my opinion. So right now I'm uploading the picture that I downloaded. I'm going to enlarge it here, and we're going to rasterize the image so it sticks onto the layer. There we go. So just like I explained before, we're going to try to find our three-point perspective grid. Now, I want you to pay attention to this image and notice how the building on the very far left, where the tree is overlapping, notice how it's not, that line, that edge of the building is not straight up. I mean, it's going up, but it's in a diagonal form. Slanted is basically the word I'm looking for. And we really don't notice things like that because we're really not trained to see things that way when we're out there in the real world. But when you look at an image, you begin to understand what's going on. So X and Y is our two axes, horizontal and vertical. Now imagine that square, four-sided square, X and Y. And if we add depth to it, we create a third axis point, and we'll call that Z. That is how perspective works. Instead of looking at things two-dimensionally, we create the illusion of depth by adding a third point. I'm gonna do another quick example here, and I did speed up the video a little bit faster. And think of this as a three-dimensional triangle, and you know it as a pyramid. And this is also allowing us to create depth and three-dimensional space is established here. And this is actually a top view of a pyramid, which doesn't matter right now, but moving on. So we need to find our perspective grid, and Clip Studio Paint allows you to take a special ruler and map out where our horizon line is going to be. So you can see I did the top windowsill and the bottom windowsill, and it tracked down this horizon line, which is the blue thin line there, is where our eye level is. And now, next up, I'm going to establish some quick figures here in the horizon line. There are a lot of artists that have difficulty placing figures in their picture and properly relating them to each other. So I'm going to show you a quick example of what I mean. You can hang your figures on the horizon line by making it cut through similar areas of your figure. In this case, it's going to be the head, mainly the eyes. So no matter how big or small your figures are placed into your image, the horizon line should always cut through the same part of the body. And what it does is it establishes a correct ground plane, if that makes sense. Think of they're standing correctly into the frame, and it doesn't look off, it doesn't look weird at all. It's correct, and it's a good rule of thumb in order to not think too much on what you're drawing. Now, this is a perfect example of ignoring the ground plane because this image is basically flying. So he's above the horizon line and not on the ground, obviously. So one thing that I do want to mention is please leave a comment after this video if there are certain things that you can't really see. I know the lines on the software are very thin, and I wish there was a way to highlight these things, and I'm gonna find out exactly how to make it a little bit more clear. But if you are having trouble, leave a comment below so the next video that I can do will be a little bit easier to follow through with as far as it comes with the visuals. So right now I am establishing my second vanishing point. Same thing as I did with the left vanishing point, where it recedes all the way to the back following those windowsills. I basically did the same thing with the right vanishing point, and the windows on the other face of the building are receding all the way down to the right side. And now what we have here is we have 2 points of perspective. And we are going to get our last point set up here, and this is going to be our third point, and this is vertical, or vertical axis. And I am lining up the right side of the window, and I have set up the left side of the window, and our point meets all the way up there. So we have our top, our left, and our right. That is 3-point perspective. And I'm going to draw out the perspective grid. And I'm going to speed up this process because it takes a ton of time. And I'm reestablishing my horizon line. I know I wrote it already, but I like to remind people that are trying to learn to never forget this area, very important area. And the reason why is anything below that horizon line we see the top of, and anything on top we see the bottom of. It's confusing, but I'm drawing out a perfect example. Where I drew the eyes is our eye level. So we hold a cube below that eye level and we see the top, and we hold a cube above the eye level, we can only see the bottom, and nothing else is really that visible because of our point of view. And if you look straight directly to a cube matching the eye level, we see just the sides. We don't see the top or the bottom. They're not visible because they match up with our eye level. I hope that makes sense. And that's why if you have any questions and if anything comes off confusing as far as the information that I'm putting out, please leave a comment and I will do a video or link a description to my site in order to a better detailed understanding on how this works. And right now I am establishing my perspective grid, and these lines are receding to the left. Speeding up the video, I'm doing the top lines, the vertical lines. And next I'm doing the right. Lines receding to the right. And this is what a 3-point perspective grid looks like. Every single time that I draw a panel on a comic book, if I have to draw a city scene, this is how my page will look before I get started. Minus the image in the background, but this is essentially how it looks and how I draw and design buildings. And the beauty about this, you have set up, it all comes down to your imagination and how you want things to look. You can create anything once you have something like this set up. I mean, this is the fun part. This is what I love about drawing, is creating something that has never been seen before. Everything you do is completely brand new, and the challenge of drawing a comic book is doing something that hasn't been done before, being innovative, being fresh, and just captivating your audience with something amazing. And that's my goal as an artist, is to break records. I'll take that back, not break records. What am I looking for? Originality. Yeah, originality is a lot better. So if you're wondering what I'm doing here, I'm using the perspective grids in order to draw new things onto this image. You can see that there was a bridge that I drew in the background using those perspective lines. And I'm drawing another bridge between the Sandler building on the right and the bank building on the left. Now, because we were able to find our perspective points, I'm able to draw anything that I want, and it matches up with the background as far as how the framework is and how things are angled. So I'm going to speed up this video a little bit faster so we can kind of just get through this a little quicker. Sorry for the text. I'll lower this volume here a little bit. And there it goes again. I apologize. I'm gonna put that on silent real quick. Alright, so yeah, so this is a perfect example of how perspective works, and the images in the background that I drew relate to the images that I used from Google, and they match up. So now we're going to start from complete scratch. Let's say that you have a comic book project that you want to do. You received a script from the editor, and that first panel says, okay, our first shot is going to be during the day, exterior shot of a building, and we see a person walking from, we'll just say, look, we have somebody walking in the image, and this is our main character. So what I do is, this is how my comic book page will look before I do anything, and I'm following the lines of perspective that I have established. And you can see I'm following those lines that I drew. Those lines are not going anywhere else that is away from the vanishing points established. And the reason why I like using Clip Studio Paint is because I don't need a ruler. Once I have this established, what the software does is no matter how I draw, no matter how curvy my drawing is, it's always going to follow that line no matter what. So it takes the ease off of having to get a ruler and matching up the ruler to that left or right vanishing point and having to draw from that single point. And I'm actually going to do a video on traditional perspective drawing. So not using any digital means. How I started drawing perspective was I would take a ruler and figure out my vanishing points, and I would have to take my ruler and draw those lines by myself, obviously by myself, onto that page, line by line by line by line. And sometimes I would need like 4 or 5 sheets of paper because my vanishing point would be so far off to the left or to the right. And that's how I used to get things done. I still do it that way, don't get me wrong. There's something about drawing those lines onto paper, and for some reason I get better results, and I think it's because I've been doing this before these softwares were out and available for download. And they basically created this because digital comic book creation is essentially like the new way of like how most people draw their comics these days. Or, you know, if you have a kid that is interested in drawing comics, I would recommend that they would use a software like this, because, you know, back in my day, we had the means and the patience to do things on paper and you know, take our time with things. But, you know, in this era, you know, kids are used to things that are done faster, and they respond better to digital assets, and it makes more sense to them. They learn faster, they can do a lot more, where, you know, it's just easier for them. Like I said, they respond better to speed, and it's just how it is now. I'm trying to experiment myself with a lot of digital art. It's hard to adapt to it, but practice makes perfect, and I am learning a lot. And I do want to use this sometime in the future to do my own line of comics, mainly because the time that it allows. So now you can see in this image, it's beginning to look like an actual building. And if you paid attention, you could see that those lines are responding to all the vanishing points that I've set up. I feel like by now you understand exactly how 3-point perspective works, and how easy it is to actually, once you actually understand it, you can create so many different backgrounds and create something amazing. Okay, so now I turned off the special ruler, and the reason why is because I wanted to make this background that I'm drawing a little bit more interesting. So I have no idea what that is right now, but let's say, yeah, okay, I remember. Let's say this is a tree in the background, and this is a rock. And what I'm doing is I'm establishing a more interesting composition, which is something else we will definitely talk about in the future as well. Here's the thing. When it comes to creating comic books, you have to know and understand what you're doing. Everything, every line that you create, every image that you put in has an intent. And that intent comes from what you learned as an artist. Perspective, figure drawing, gesture drawing, composition, layout. How are you going to take a script? Okay, let's say you want to do a sample page that you want to show somebody, or an editor. Let's say an editor from Marvel is like, hey, I need you to draw me 3 pages. I want to see how you get your work done and how you draw your comics. Here's a script, and you have a deadline. And that's probably the most scariest thing that's going to happen to you. It's happened to me. And there's a lot of pressure that you'll go through. There's a lot of anxiety and a lot's going to happen. And the more you understand what you're doing, the more confident that you are in your work and in yourself. If you find yourself having trouble with a lot of things, take the time to do the research, and understand what's going on, because the editors they can look at a drawing, let's say, all right, he draws really well. He can draw a figure, he draws a really good Spider-Man or a really good Batman, but can he create a story? Can he create 5 panels on a page and actually make it look like a good story? Is he following the rules, or is he or she following the rules of perspective correctly? Can they fit that figure in correctly into each panel? Can they draw simple things like a family eating dinner at a table, or somebody walking their dog or cat, or somebody smoking a cigarette, reading a book, doing homework, or doing research on the computer? Just those simple things. It's not always about somebody breaking a wall down and trying to stop a bank robber and saving the day. For me, the most challenging thing about comic books is drawing real life situations like I had just described. Once you are confident in doing things like that, because 9 times out of 10 you're gonna get a script that has one fight scene, 20 pages, one fight scene, and all of it is just simple life things, like somebody just doing 9-to-5 job things or whatever. There's going to be no fighting involved. It's just going to be things that we actually do every day, and that's just how it's going to be. I'm sad to say, but right now I'm establishing a figure, and I did a video on gesture drawing a little bit ago, and the main purpose of these videos is I want to jump from subject to subject to subject, so that once we have all that information into place, we can basically create a comic book panel following all the videos that I've done and bringing all that information together so we can follow through of what's going on. So I think the first video I did was gesture drawing, and this is my second tutorial, and it's on perspective. The next one I think I'm gonna do is placing figures into perspective, and then after that, what we're going to do together is we're going to create a comic book panel with figures in perspective. So you get it, right? So I'm doing these different subjects because there is a lot that's going on. And actually, before we even get into creating a panel, we need to understand things like the rules of thirds, composition, layout, using lighting, shading, like what side of the building is going to be dark and what side of the building is going to be light. Same thing with figures, lighting figures. we have to put all these things into one. These are things that we need to know to understand. Things like value, you know, there's a lot. And it's not that hard. It's really easy to understand. I think the hard thing is to take all that information and putting it into one drawing. That's the challenge. And the only way you're going to get better is practice. So, yeah. So we're going to do a little bit more. I'm going to do a little bit more in the future and do a little bit more explaining on different aspects of drawing a comic, and then we will do a video and do an entire panel, just one panel. We're gonna concentrate on one panel, and we're gonna do this together, and we're gonna draw our first panel together, and you're gonna understand basically what it takes to draw comic book art. The best way I can describe comic book art, and somebody told me this at a Comic-Con convention back in New York. You know, you watch a movie, you sit down and you watch a movie, and we have no idea what it took for that movie to be created, right? I mean, we have somebody that creates the idea, all right, and they write out that, they pass that script on to whatever studio that wants to, you know, put in the funding for it in order to create this movie. And then they have to hire directors, they have to hire a team of lighting, cinematography, there's makeup, there's people that do the clothing and all that stuff, and there's just a lot going on behind the scenes. There's, you know, stunts, there's visual effects, there's a lot. You know, you're talking about hundreds of people being involved in just a 2-hour runtime of something that we're watching in our living room. And it costs money. And I remember I met a comic book artist at Comic-Con, and he made me understand this in the best way possible. You are all those things when you're drawing comics. Drawing comics is like drawing a movie, except that those figures aren't moving. You have to make it believable. You are the director, you are the lighting guy, you are the person that does everything, like his characters, their look, their hair, everything is involved. And it's up to you to put that all together. You are a one-man movie studio. So, and the beauty about it is there is no budget. So your imagination is going to take it as far as you want it to go. I can draw anything that I want, and I don't have to pay a single dime to draw that. If I want to draw the most expensive looking spaceship, I can do that because I don't need, you know, a team of people going to a prop shop and a visual effects artist making it look like something out of Star Wars. I can do that myself with my imagination, my hand, my just everything. And that's why I love comics, because I can do something that's never, you know, been seen before. And if you think about it, a lot of these movies that are coming out nowadays, they're adapting their stories from comic books or video games. And yeah, so that's basically how it goes. It's not the best description of how it works, but it's how it is. Being a comic book artist is not easy, but it can be if you practice. It comes naturally. Practice makes perfect. Like, my drawings, you know, years ago was nothing like it is today, and I had a lot of trouble believing in myself to take myself to that level. And what I realized is I just didn't give up. And every time I went to a convention, or I would try to, I talked to an editor at these conventions, because what I wanted was to show them my portfolio, so they would just hire me right on the spot. Every time I was ready with, you know, a new set of pages. I go up to the conventions, I find an editor, we talk for a little bit, and I'm like, can you take a look at my portfolio? Hoping he's like, oh my goodness, like, you're so good, like, here's my card, like, can you start working on this book today? And it's not like that. It's not. I mean, it's a dream job. You know, comic book artists, they can make a lot of money. They get paid page rates, and it can be in the hundreds per page. So it's a dream job because you're doing what you love and you're making good money out of it. But it's hard to break into. You have to know what you're doing. You really have to be good, and you really have to stand out. Yeah, so practice as much as you can and do the research, and you'll get there. So I'm putting everything together here, and we're just about done. And I just want to thank you guys for watching this video. It's from what I can see, I'm editing it right now. It's up to a half hour long, so I didn't mean to make it this long. I guess there is a lot to explain, but I think I'm gonna try to make my videos a little bit shorter next time, and we'll see how it goes. I'm learning as I go, and I think I only have, this will be my third video on YouTube, so I'm learning, and I want to try to keep my videos at least ranging between 10 minutes to about 20 minutes average. For some reason, I feel that videos that are a little bit more than anything more than 20 minutes, people tend to lose focus, and I don't want that. So I think next time I do something, I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet, yet descriptive. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget to click on the description, like and subscribe, click the link to Clip Studio Paint, and yeah, so odaartstudio.com. And if you have any questions, leave a comment below. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to post the next video. Happy New Year.